So here it is. I managed to so far get 60 divides on this diagram, and they're supposed to be 120. Of course, you can think this diagram here. For this is the pentadecagon. The pentadecagon is what this is, and this is also, it has a pentadecagon within it, and it also has, there's several decagons. There's 3 decagons. Each one I managed to position 120 degrees away from each other, so that it ends up making this 15 gon, which is an important factor of 120, because when you usually do a seed of life diagram, it is a triangular structure, believe it or not, because you start out with a circle, and then where that circle ends, you can decide which area you want to start at, and you can use that as your center, and then make another circle, and then it's 2 circles that are linked, and you go between those circles on either side, and you can create this 3 sort of structure. And then you continue until you have 6, and once you have 6, you can do 12, 20, 24, and so on. This kind of does the opposite of what Erik Larson does, where he goes 24 degrees away from the or he goes 15 degrees away from the previous one, and then he'll start a mark, and then he bases this on the seed of life diagram that has 24 divides. Each one of course is about it's 15 degrees apart. If I wanted, I could start to make markings here of what the degree line is, but perhaps I should wait until I have all 120 parts, and then it'll be more easy. And it's easy. This is the reverse of what Erik Larson does, because instead of going every 15 degrees and ending up with a foundation of 24, it goes every 24 degrees and ends up with a foundation of 15. And the reason why that's significant is because you can then demonstrate all 360 degrees on the shape, because once you have 120, it's easy to make slight three you can make little 3-way marks once you get there. But that's not really easy to do, if you're basing it on 24, and at some point you got to add a 5ness to it. So at some point you have to face the 5ness. This kind of already gets that over with, because it's based on if we was going to do maybe a base 10 version. You can see how each corner of the pentagon is like the center, and you got the circle around it, and you do 5 of them, and then you do 5 more and 5 more, and you can get 20. You can get a full score based on that. But base 12, base 24, 24, you have this you don't have this type of thing because the fiveness hasn't been added, and it's much easier, to get the fiveness and the threeness out of the way, and then work on the doubling, and I will admit I will have to add an extra threeness here, but it's easy to start out with 15 and already have the 5 out of the way than to have to face that fiveness way down the line when I've already constructed a lot of things there that are mostly binary anyway. There definitely were issues with precision here, but if you're going to base your shape on a 15 gon, a pentadecagon, you're definitely going to have some difficulty in making it perfect. It's hard enough to make a regular seed-of-life diagram perfect, and it's extremely difficult to make this gigantic thing perfect. But one of the reasons that I was inspired to do this is because you see the 360 degrees that the Babylonians constructed, and they used a base 60. So what I want is a base 60 representation of how you would divide 360 degrees, or a base 120 representation. As I typically, I'm interested in the long 100, and I'm interested in sort of the Trinity concept of the 3 within the 1, which is not necessarily a Christian idea. It's a mystical idea. It's not necessarily bound to any religion. It's a metaphysical idea, because if you think about it, what is the universe made of? I mean, obviously there's the absolute, which is unfound, undefined by any creation, right? But the absolute, right, is within the universe, and the universe is defined by 3 because you have 3 different aspects of an atom, right? You have the electrons, you have the neutrons, and you have the protons. You always have 2 extremes, and then you always have a neutral in the middle everywhere in the world, right? There's right, binary doesn't necessarily do it, but it kind of does it, because you got an example of the first one. You have you got 0, and then you got 1, and then you got 1 0, but then the 3 is 1 1. So you have 3 concepts there. You got a 0, and then you got a 1 and a 0, and then you got 1 1, right? It's a lot like that. So you could base a zodiac sign or anything on this, and you can represent 360 degrees, sort of like the Babylonians did, except they didn't have this type of technology, right? So they couldn't have created something this magnificent. But this is probably, the ancient cultures, if they would have kept the base 60 idea, eventually they probably would have ran into this idea, and they would have possibly constructed it. So there's that, and now I'm going to construct more of it.